Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to the January Cabinet meeting. Fire alarm procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, vacate the offices via the stairs. Please do not use the lifts. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it's deemed safe to return to the chamber. Please switch off or turn to silent your mobile phones and do not make or receive calls while this meeting is in progress. We are not able to live stream the meeting this evening due to a technical fault which is being experienced across the county. However, the meeting is being recorded and the recording will be made available afterwards. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No. Thank you. I've got a number of members who are requesting to speak under 20.1. I'm not convinced I've got all of them on this list, so Charles will chip in if there are others. Item 10, Councillor Bayford. Items 12, Councillors Rogers and Austin, and items 14, Councillors Rogers, Austin and Davis. Do I have any other members who have asked or intend to speak?
In between there, there's, I think, item 5 and 6. So item 5, 6 and 7.
Councillor Austin for items 5, 6 and 7, yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody happy? Yeah. Super. Cabinet is all here, so we have no apologies. Does anyone have an interest in declaring the items of business on the agenda this evening? Yeah. Councillor Alban? You say you did? No. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 18th of December. I propose to take the minutes as read. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Keane. Thank you. Members agree? Agree. Thank you. And the first substantive item is the revision to the local development scheme, local plan work programme, which is introduced by Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. This report concerns revisions to the Council's local plan and planning policy work programme, known as the Local Development Scheme. There is a legal requirement for us to have a local development scheme. The current LDS needs to be updated to reflect changes in circumstances affecting the local plan progression. This report sets out proposed changes to the work programme for updating the adopted local plan and other local plan related documents. The key elements of the local development scheme, the local plan work programme, are set out in the given report, and the proposed timetable for the local plan is set out at paragraph 3.12. The purpose of having an LDS is to provide a suitable basis for resource and budget planning for the plan making process, to provide a clear local plan timetable for officers, members, interested groups, individuals and other statutory bodies, and to meet the Council's statutory duties under Section 15 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004. As members will be aware, the Government is introducing far-reaching changes to the current plan-making process. These are set out in more detail at paragraph 3.1 of the report. It is therefore recommended that the local plan timetable be amended as follows, but on a provisional basis only, subject to further legislative changes and government guidance. It is recommended that Cabinet agrees the proposals for the revised local development scheme, and I move the recommendations set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor White. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Alban. Any comments, members? No, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We move on to item 5, which is the Active Thanet Strategic Framework 2025 to 2028. And to introduce, it's Councillor Keane.
Our existing Active Thanet Strategic Framework expired in 2022, and whilst the principles and work have continued, officers haven't had the capacity to update it until now. This document has been compiled by the community team along with the Active Thanet partners. The aim is to tackle systemic barriers such as inequality while fostering long-term improvements in health and well-being through increased opportunities to participate in sport and integrate physical activity into daily life. This isn't specifically about more sports provision, but about how to move more in your everyday life and gradually improve your health with maybe one day playing a sport or going to the gym. The Thanet Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, which is on the agenda this evening, is a great example of the principles of the framework to improve opportunities to be more physical. I note the overview and scrutiny panel raised some concerns about not working in silos and being consistent with this policy across our decisions due to the changes that were introduced last year with charges. This was a trial which is being reviewed, and changes have been made this year which were recently presented at a councillor briefing. I therefore propose that the Cabinet adopt the Active Thanet Strategic Framework.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Duckworth, thank you. And speaking under 20.1, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Keane. Yes, just wanted to say that this looks excellent, and I'm pleased to hear what you had to say about what we raised at scrutiny, because that was a bit of a concern that maybe we were working in separate little units there. And looking at this and the cycling and walking strategy together, it feels to us like one of the things we should be doing, as well as developing our sports facilities, is making Thanet generally more walking and cycling friendly, to encourage people to get out of their cars and be doing more everyday exercise, and that will actually help us with the prosperity of our towns as well, because we'll have people going into the town centre on foot rather than driving past it to Westwood Cross in their cars. So we're pleased to see this. We're particularly pleased to see the partnership work going on, and we're happy to see that it's all being linked up. Thank you.
Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Austin. Yeah, I'm really pleased that this has come at the same time as the cycling and walking plan, because it's exactly the kind of thing that we need to bring together. So it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Members? No discussion? I think we welcome this. I mean, it doesn't need a great deal of elaboration tonight, but it's obviously an important framework, and we're pleased to see it coming forward and very supportive of it. Members, that's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 6 is the Thanet Suicide Prevention Strategic Framework. That's Councillor Keane as well.
Thank you, Leader. Thanet's suicide prevention strategy aims to reduce suicide and self-harm in the district by improving mental health support, strengthening professional relationships and addressing local challenges, particularly given the higher rates of suicide in Thanet compared to Kent and Medway. This is a strategic document which demonstrates priorities and areas of focus. It is not a Thanet Council to-do list. This document is about how all sectors can work better together to prevent suicide. It promotes multi-agency collaboration, ensuring professionals work together, share knowledge and provide cohesive mental health and suicide prevention services. It also increases the opportunities to talk about suicide. It shouldn't be a taboo subject. Thanet was proudly part of the Baton of Hope tour in September, where we celebrated hope, started the conversation and raised awareness about suicide prevention. Only 27% of people who die by suicide were known to mental health services. So it makes it clear that suicide prevention is not just about people being in crisis and accessing medical support. It is also about how we individually engage with people, the opportunities presented to talk about things and seek or offer support. Therefore, I propose the Thanet Cabinet adopt the Thanet Suicide Prevention Strategic Framework and delegate any minor amendments to the Head of Neighbourhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bright, thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Keane. Yes, we very much welcome this, and you picked up on the statistic that I was going to mention, which Ms Button raised at scrutiny, which is really shocking that such a high proportion of people who die by suicide are not people who are known by mental health services. And as our communities are fragmented, that sort of local support that perhaps we used to have in our grandparents' day is not there in the same way, and the stresses of modern life easily get on top of people. So the work that we are committed to doing across Thanet with all our community groups, whether they be community groups that are directly looking at physical or mental health, or whether they're community groups that are just offering social contact, is got to be absolutely crucial. And the more that we can do to foster those and support those relationships, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I totally agree with you. What I also like about this strategy is that it's very much about opening the conversation with people, that people need to be able to talk about this and feel that it's safe to do so and that they will be supported. And I think this document underpins that attitude.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Alban.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this is vitally important. And it's specifically in relation to men and young men. They're more prevalent, as we know, to commit suicide and not to talk. That's as you get older, maybe your friends kind of grow. But if you're young and insular, then you're not going to talk to anybody. And that's why they feel lost, and that's why they kill themselves. So something like this, if we can get this out and get this out into, spread this out, and then try to engage. And I think that's the thing, is engagement. We need to engage more. So I'm very supportive of this, Chair. Thank you. And also for personal reasons, I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's hugely important that we're the first to bring this forward in Kent, not only because of the statistics that we unfortunately represent, but because we have made a very clear public commitment to the most vulnerable people in our society, and I think this is a huge part of that. There are so many reasons for people to struggle with depression and struggle with suicidal thoughts. I think it's really important to look at the vulnerabilities even within that cohort. So autistic people, for instance, are 10 times more likely than the average member of the population to die by suicide. And all of these specific vulnerabilities combined within Thanet make for a population that needs and deserves a lot of support around these areas, because we are an area of multiple deprivation. So I'm fully in support of this, and I'm very proud that we're the first in Kent to bring it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Bright.
Yeah, thank you. I fully support this, and thank the officers for bringing the report. I think people have already made the comments, but mental illness is unseen. It goes through all stratas of society. Yes, there are factors such as poverty, loneliness, deprivation, etc. And I'm really pleased that it has come at the same time as the Active Thanet strategy, because we know that one of the very earliest interventions, I guess, that people can have to improve their mental health is via, things like better exercise and getting out and meeting people. But, I would just remind everyone that, mental illness is increasingly taken seriously by society. It's also, it is caused by, in many cases, chemical imbalances. It is a real medical factor. And the more we encourage people and give people the courage and the space to actually speak about these things by working with community groups such as Manspace in Margate, the better. So, I've known people who've gone through this, and I've lost someone I know. It's an incredibly important thing for us to be dealing with. So, fully support this.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, members, that one's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 7 is the Thanet Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, also known as the TC WHIP. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. This report concerns the draft Thanet Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, otherwise known as Councillor Everett just noted, as the TC WHIP, which is a highly exciting name, and is an update following the recent public consultation. The adoption of the TC WHIP is crucial. It's designed to elevate the priority given to cycling, walking and wheeling. This adoption will also give the Council access to greater levels of government funding from the Department for Transport. It will ensure that the network is considered in Kent County Council highway improvements, and it also provides the evidence base for policies in our new local plan and helps to deliver the aims of the Council's Air Quality Strategy 2026. The consultation process was approved by Cabinet in April 2025 and was designed to gather wider public views, to give greater weight to the adopted plan and provide essential support for future funding bids. This consultation ran from the 4th of July to the 17th of August 2025 and was publicised through Your Voice Thanet, our social media channels, The Wave, and 5 public drop-in events across the district. We received a total of 76 responses, which were generally positive. This matter was considered by overview and scrutiny on the 15th of January, and they did not make any formal recommendations, and the panel supported the recommendations within the report. We recommend that Cabinet adopt the TC Whip as a council strategy and agree that the provisions of the TC Whip be incorporated into other council strategies as appropriate. I move the recommendation set out in the report.
Was that you?
I'm not quite sure where that intervention came from, to be honest with you. Members, do we have a seconder? Councillor Keane, thank you. Speaking under 20.1, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Obviously, we strongly support this. This is an excellent development, and we're really grateful to the officers who we know have put a huge amount of time into this. One point that we made at scrutiny and that I think bears repeating is the importance of facilities for people to be able to cycle more and walk more. So dropped curbs, decent pavements, places that you can lock your bike where somebody with bolt cutters and a hoodie is not going to nick it, etc. And we were talking at scrutiny about developments in that regard where hopefully Ramsgate Town Council and Thanet District Council will partner on some secure bike storage, for example, to pilot that in a couple of areas. So we need to be working with partners on the range of other things that enable this, most particularly with KCC, but also obviously with other partners. We know that officers are committed to doing that, but we equally know that there are huge financial pressures that push against it. So we're very pleased to see this coming forward and committed to helping it to develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Yes, I think that underlines why it's so important to put this in place now, because in enshrining it, it does open the door for us to be eligible for further funding to ensure that we are meeting the needs of residents. So, thank you.
Members, Councillor Bright.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Whitehead and officers for bringing this. Fully support it. I think I'm going to build on what Councillor Austin was speaking about. Obviously, it's really important that we work with all parties. When I was chair of Broadstairs Town Council a couple of years ago, we held a drop-in for residents to discuss what would make them feel safer on our streets and roads. I think we need to remember that Thanet has the highest level of road traffic and pedestrian of cyclist and pedestrian accidents in Kent, and people broadly agreed that our roads are dangerous. Working as part of the environmental committee headed by Councillor Joanne Bright, we're in the process of producing a highway improvement plan, and KCC are making recommendations on really rolling out 20-mile-an-hour zones, which we fully support. We know that residents support, and I think it's really important that goes hand in hand with this, and that we can get our Kent County councillors to support this wherever they are. On the point of bike hangers, I'm pleased that was part of the parking review that we brought to Cabinet in December 2024, and that Councillor Austin joined myself and Ms Button on a call a couple of weeks ago to discuss a pilot on those. So looking forward to that. So yeah, fully support.
Okay, I'm fully supportive of this as well, and I'm conscious that although we do have some very good cycling facilities in the district, which I think are leisure routes, we're not quite so good in terms of providing safe routes that people can be confident of travelling. I know there was a discussion at scrutiny about travel to school. I think that's a key is a key issue, not only because we want children to travel to school and not to have the parking problems that we've got outside so many of our schools, but also we want them to get into the habit of cycling. We don't know where that's coming from, so we're going to continue to ignore it, I think, for the time being, unless it becomes too disruptive. We might see it as a form of comment on the speaker or not. I don't know. Yeah, I have a particular interest in the creation of a safer cycle route between Cliffsend and Minster, which has always seemed very sensible to me along the route of the railway line, which is in the proposal. Members, that's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. I'm just going to warn Councillor Duckworth before we move on to item 8 that I'm going to take item 14 immediately after it, just so it doesn't come as a surprise to you. Item 8 is the Thanet Regeneration Programme Theatre Royal project decisions. Councillor Duckworth.
As we move forward with the Thanet Regeneration Programme, this project remains a critical priority, aligning with the Council's corporate plan 2024 to 28 to create a thriving place through targeted heritage and cultural regeneration. The Theatre Royal is the UK's second oldest working theatre and has been on the theatre's at-risk register since 2018. These recommendations are essential to securing its future and ensuring it can reopen in 2027. Despite officers' exhaustive efforts, we were unsuccessful in securing £10.5 million in additional grant funding from the Cultural Development Fund and other sources. This has necessitated a change in our approach. The original plan for the Council to lead a new operating trust is no longer financially viable without external revenue support. However, market testing has shown strong interest from third-party operators who are in a position to underwrite the start-up costs themselves. Moving to a lease model with an independent operator is now the most viable route to protect the Council's financial position while ensuring the theatre's success. Our design team, Foster Wilson Size, has completed the REBA Stage 1 master plan. We are now progressing onward towards REBA Stage 3 with planning and listed building consent application scheduled for February 2026. Public support for this vision remains exceptionally high, with over 92% of respondents engaged wanting to see the theatre fully operational again. I'm pleased to present this report for approval today to ensure we can move this vital cultural heritage project towards completion. I'd ask Cabinet to approve the reallocation of the Active Movement and Connections Margate project funds of £1 million to Theatre Royal project. 2, approve the procurement of contractors for capital works to Theatre Royal. 3, delegate to the Head of Property in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Property the entering into legal arrangements with an operator to run and manage the Theatre Royal and 19 Hawley Square. 4, Cabinet should note that the REBA Stage 1 master plan and the selected Phase 1 scheme is to reopen the theatre. The above approvals will allow the project to move forward towards completion.
Can you have a seconder? Councillor Alban. Comments on the Theatre Royal, members? Councillor Alban.
Sorry. You again. Being someone who's visited and enjoyed shows at the Theatre Royal, as small as it is, I think for me it proved that it could be successful with the likes of Michael McIntyre and Alan Carr came down to Theatre Royal to give their ask the audience there to see whether they liked their comedy, the comedy that he was bringing forward, and I think that's a great little circuit for doing that. But it's not only that; it's just the historical part of it, and being a part of that. It's a bit annoying sometimes if you're behind a column, but I mean that's beside the point. But I really support this, Chair, and I really hope that we can move this on and get it up and running as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Just to say that not only is this incredibly important from a historical aspect, but it's also something that's hugely important for Margate especially, and so yeah, very much welcome all of the work that's been done on this and fully support it.
Councillor Bright.
Again, obviously I've spoken about our theatres before, and incredibly important to give people the opportunity to perform and to visit the theatre. I'd like to say I absolutely love the vision. I love the space they've created between the building itself and 19 Hawley Square. And I think that's an incredible use of that space, and really happy with that. I'm also really pleased that we're now at the stage of contracting out the works, because I think we all know that until people see those spades going into the ground, they kind of think that nothing's happening. So all the work that's happening behind the scenes is great, and we'll start to realise it now, which I think is going to be fantastic for people in Margate and beyond.
Yeah, I think it's important that we bring this forward, and in encouraging that we're able to do so. I can reminisce, if you like, about visits to the Theatre Royal to see Paul Merton, Marcus Brigstock and John Cooper Clarke, among other things, other acts that I've seen there. And I think the point you make, Councillor Alban, about people being able to bring their shows there to try them out is quite an important one, because I know that was the case certainly with Paul Merton's improv show, that they go there early with a smaller audience and see what works and what doesn't work. And I also think that sometimes we've talked a lot about the Winter Gardens, because the Winter Gardens is a massive priority for us, as we know, but this is a priority as well. And if this council can get both those facilities up and running in the next period, then that will be a real achievement for us, and a real good way for the Thanet District Council to sign off, actually, to leave a proper legacy for the district. So I welcome this. This has been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. And we'll move on then, as I suggested, to item 14, which is the Regeneration Programme Asset Management Ramsgate. Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to present this report for approval at this meeting today. This report sets out an overview of and recommendations for the proposed operational models for projects within the Thanet Regeneration Programme in Ramsgate. This includes 5A Broad Street, Green Campus and the Clock House Museum and Cafe. The proposals within this document are designed to mitigate financial risks while maximising social and economic value from the schemes being delivered in Ramsgate, enabling their ability to support our communities and create jobs. To ensure that the requirements of both third-party operators and council-managed services are embedded within the delivery programme timeframe, officers are seeking approval for a strategic direction and to enable open engagement to progress their operational management. The ultimate decisions for these sites will come back to Cabinet for final review and approval. We know that going into local government reorganisation will impact the decisions we make on the management of these buildings. It is important that we consider the long-term sustainability for the projects to ensure that they are safeguarded, and the regeneration outputs will continue to deliver as local government moves into a new era. I would like to request Cabinet's agreement to the recommendations set out in the report, including the in-principle support for a third-party operator to be appointed for 5A Broad Street, with officers initiating open marketing and engagement activities to secure an operator. A third-party operator being sought for the Green Campus, with officers initiating open marketing and engagement activities to secure an operator. Clock House Museum being managed and operated by the Council for a defined period of time. The Clock House Cafe to be leased to a third-party operator, with rental amounts for the cafe to be held in a sinking fund for the museum. Cabinet should note that formal decisions for each asset will be returned to Cabinet once officers have identified the most viable and suitable approach. I move the recommendations.
Councillor Duckworth, can I have a seconder? Councillor Alban, thank you. I have a number of speakers under 20.1. First of all, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to see the progress of the Broad Street property and the Clock House in Ramsgate. I note that the lease on Broad Street will be an internal repair lease. We have seen in the past that these requirements have not been upheld on other properties and buildings have deteriorated. Will there be more internal checks to review and uphold the maintenance of these buildings? Thank you.
I actually don't know what sort of lease it will be, but it's quite possible that it will be that type of lease. I'm sure that in the future that this will improve, or has improved already, I know, and that we will be regularly checking to make sure that any agreements are upheld by the leaseholders.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Duckworth. Yes, I had some of the same concerns as Councillor Rogers to work out on what basis we were actually asking people to take on these leases, but generally it seems a very sensible idea that we go to third-party operators for these if we don't have the capacity to manage them ourselves or necessarily the skills. We have always been very, very keen on the Green Campus, but we are increasingly concerned about how that is going to work out, particularly given the changes in our approach to the port. So we want to keep a very close eye on that because it's got huge potential, but it's also got huge potential to cause us difficulty. We're very pleased to see the progress with the Clock House, and we're very keen to see the sort of community support, the Friends group and so on that are recommended there. And it's a building that is very close to the heart of Ramsgate residents, and I know they will all want to do what they can to support its development. Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Green Campus doesn't interfere with our plans for the port, which haven't been fully decided yet in any case. I think they could be an asset if you've got a building there which is being rented out. It could be an asset if things are going on there. So it's too early to say exactly how it's all going to pan out, but I don't think it's an issue at all.
Yeah, I was a bit puzzled, to be honest with you, by the comments at scrutiny about the Green Campus in relation to other plans for the port, because I think this is a project in which a great deal of work's been put in. We're now reaching the stage of coming up with the final designs through the planning process, appointing people to operate it, and now suddenly people have decided they might not like it and they might want to do something else with the money, which seems to be not only wildly impractical but quite a strange position to take up. Obviously we've got plenty of flexibility around what we do at the port, and that's a process which is ongoing now. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Leader. We're a little bit confused over here because I'm not quite sure. I don't remember anyone talking about moving money or finding alternative purposes, and neither do colleagues on the ONS. However, very much welcome the initiative to do something and find an operator for Broad Street, because the building's sort of had a look, it's rumbled along. However, what I do want to know is why we have changed tack on the Clock House, where community groups, the Civic Society, the Ramsgate Society, done a massive amount of work over a number of years, and at one point had funding available from the lottery, from one of the lottery funds, which, in the end, for various reasons, delays and that, didn't proceed. However, they've been intrinsically involved with this and are the sort of historic civic society recognised for the community. Why are we suddenly not working with them and saying we're going to run it? Because historically, we don't always cover ourselves in glory with what we run ourselves, and surely if we've got to find resources to operate that, would we not be better working collaboratively with a stable and recognised civic society that would provide the manning for that? In addition to that, the concerns around the Green Campus are we still don't know what's going in it, so I don't see how we can sort of move to marketing something when there isn't a defined use for it yet. And as I say, the whole thing puzzles me on the basis that we haven't even got planning permission in place yet, and we don't know what's going in there. So to be looking for a third-party operator, I think we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, perchance. Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth.
So I'll start with Green Campus. I think, for all of these, I think it's really great that officers are thinking ahead about how we're going to manage them. And, we have got people interested in working at the Green Campus. Obviously, we can't go into too much detail, but Ms Askew might want to expand on that a bit if she can. And the Clock House, it says for a defined period, and I'm sure, again, Ms Askew can may want to expand on community groups I don't think they're completely out of the picture, and I'm sure as we do on all projects, we're always constantly engaging with the public on various aspects.
Saskia, do you want to come in on that?
So we are working with the Ramsgate Society just because we are taking the approach of setting up and establishing an organisation to manage the museum. Doesn't mean that we're not working with existing organisations within Ramsgate. We have a really good model at Dickens House whereby we have a house manager, our museum manager oversees the work that they're doing and working with a really good network and group of volunteers, and that's the approach that we would like to take at the Clock House. We feel that in the early days of the museum it needs some more support to kind of set the processes and systems up to make sure that it can run as a really good entity and museum, and we are also looking at the museum accreditation process as part of that. So we're absolutely working with the Ramsgate Society and have talked to them about the volunteer working with us in gathering volunteers for the museum. In terms of the Green Campus, it's really usual to identify an operator during design stages so that you can ensure that what's finally designed suits their way of operating and managing a building, and it makes sense therefore to go out once we've got an operator to start to look for tenants specifically. They may have a particular way of managing a building, marketing, advertising experience that doesn't necessarily sit with us right now for a kind of workspace operation such as that. So it's a really common practice when you're building spaces that you're not necessarily going to be operating yourselves to bring in that third party operator for final stages of design. So that's the process that we are going through now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't help reflecting that we did previously try with the Clock House to have a third-party organisation operating it, and I don't think that was terribly successful, and that's why we got into the mess that we did with the Clock House. So I'm quite confident about the approach that we're taking. In terms of the Green Campus, we do seem a little bit... We do tend on occasions, I think, to damn projects because we don't know the full story before they've actually been delivered, and I'm minded that an example of that would be the Thanet Parkway station, because I read an article this afternoon which says that the Thanet Parkway station is the fastest growing station in Kent and has more than doubled its passenger numbers in the last year, whereas, as we all know, there was a great deal of scepticism from some corners, including some corners of this chamber, about whether it would succeed or whether it should ever be built. I was always very confident that it would succeed, and I know from using it regularly that it does. Perhaps the same will apply to the Green Campus. We shall have to wait and see. Members, any comments? Councillor Alden.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. These matters are vitally important for Ramsgate, and I'm so pleased to see this this current way forward, and especially for the residents of Ramsgate. And because we want to see things that's happening on the ground, as is what's happening with the Clock House. So, again, to say, get this done, get this moving, fully support it, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Bryant.
I'd just like to build on some of what Ms Askew said. Of course, and Councillor Alvin said it perfectly, the Clock House, these projects are vitally important. Clock House is a much loved museum, but museums need to be run by professionals first and foremost, and we have a professional museums manager. The model that they're working on at Broadstairs in Dickens House has really worked well. They're doing more with their collection. They're curating it. It's better curated. He's setting up a story. He's set up a narrative. I'm really looking forward to seeing the opening of Dickens House this summer, because it's going to be a lot better experience for visitors. And I think that's what's going to come through to the Clock House. The Clock House visitor experience should be absolutely core to everything, because that's where you get people coming back. The volunteers have done an absolutely brilliant job of curating and storing and sorting all of the items that museum has, but those items must go back and tell a story. and really bring the most out of that space. So I'm fully confident in the work that the museums manager does. And I'd also like to just build on the point around the Green Campus, because the company I work for moved offices just a year ago, and I can absolutely tell you that that process took about 5 years, and they were presented with an empty shell, and the intervening 5 years covered the COVID pandemic, and it meant that the way we would normally have worked 5 years ago was completely different to the way we work today, and the space reflects that. So the fact is, they saw an empty shell before the COVID pandemic, set out where all the desks would go, and then 3 years later they completely went back to the drawing board and created an amazing workspace that we all come together and share. So I think that, you know, there's nothing, it certainly isn't anything unusual, and actually this is absolutely best practice.
Thank you, members. Okay, that one's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We move on to item 9. Got a long run of items presented by me now, I'm afraid. Item 9 is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement for 26-27. The report presents that strategy. It's a technical but critical document that governs how we manage the Council's cash flows, borrowing and investments, and our strategy reflects a prudent approach. While interest rates are forecast to fall gradually, they remain elevated. Consequently, our strategy remains one of being under-borrowed, that is, utilising our own cash balances where possible to delay taking on external debt. However, members will note that our borrowing requirement is set to rise to 99 million over the next 3 years. This is driven primarily by what we term defensive capital investment, and specifically the £21 million allocation to acquire properties for temporary accommodation. This is not borrowing for commercial yield, it is borrowing to save. By acquiring our own assets, we reduce our reliance on expensive, nightly paid private accommodation, therefore cutting the severe revenue overspends that threaten our financial stability. The strategy ensures that we comply with the SITFA Prudential Code while directly addressing our most significant financial risk. And I move the recommendations. I think I'll read them out. Cabinet notes and makes comments as appropriate on the proposed TMS for 26-27 and its annexes, including each of the elements listed below, the capital plan's prudential indicators and limits for 26-27 to 28-29, including the authorised limit prudential indicators, the minimum revenue provision policy, the Treasury management strategy for 26-27 to 28-29, and the Treasury indicators, the investment strategy for 26-27 contained in the Treasury management strategy, including the detailed criteria, the capital strategy for 26-27, and the non-Treasury investments report for 26-27. Cabinet is to recommend the proposed TMSS for 26-27 and its annexes to Council for approval. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bright, thank you. Any discussion, members? No. Councillor Bright.
I'd like to welcome this report. It's very well put together.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bright. Members, that's been moved to second. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 10 is the council tax base calculation for 26-27. This report formally sets the number of Band D equivalent properties on which we and our preceptors will levy council tax. We are proposing a tax base of 48,699.16, which is an increase of 0.91%. Crucially, this report recommends reconfirming the 100% premium on second homes effective from the 1st of April 2025, alongside the continued graduated premiums for long-term empty properties. We face a housing crisis in Thanet, and it's right that the tax system encourages the use of existing housing stock as primary residences. While these premiums generate revenue, their primary policy objective is to bring homes back into use for our residents. And I move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Keane. And speaking under 20.1, Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Leader. Looking at section 11.11b, I completely support the high percentage charges for empty homes when they could be put to good use. I'm interested to know whether, in the situation where these higher percentage charges at 200 and 300%, excluding those that are exempt, of course, are not paid, the Council has any further course of action available in order to encourage the utilisation of these properties.
I shall ask the finance officers if they want to comment on that. Mr. Blundell.
Thank you, Leader. So we'd go through the recovery process the same way as we would for any other outstanding council tax debt. But over and above that, I would actually revert to Mr. Porter. He could probably talk a little bit around the work that his empty homes team and the private sector housing team do in relation to trying to bring empty homes back into stock, because perhaps... sorry to throw that one to you there, Bob, but it's probably more your domain than mine.
No, that's fine, absolutely. We do have an empty homes strategy which is published on the council's website. I'll be more than happy to, talk through the details of that at any particular time. We will be updating that in periodically. I think the starting point, of course, is that it's not illegal for an owner to have an empty property. So we don't have enforcement powers to require owners to bring properties back into use. But we do quite a lot of work to encourage owners to bring back properties into use, including working with the county's No Use Empty programme, which provides loan funding for owners to undertake works to bring empty properties back into use. We can also support owners who want to sell their property and maybe don't know how to go about that, and support new owners to then work to bring that property back into use. Quite often we find that just having a dialogue with the owners of empty properties and supporting them through the process is sufficient to encourage and enable them to do something. So, but there's a lot more detail in that strategy, if you want that information, I'd be more than happy to talk it through.
Thank you. Members, comments on the tax base? Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment about the fees for the crematorium. That, I'm really glad to see that they've been set up with a view to the competition we face.
I think this is a tax base,
Oh,
Councillor.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
We've got lots of finance papers to come.
Right, next time.
Thank you. Members, if there's no further discussion, that's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We move on to the fees and charges for 26-27.
I'm ready.
So, our overall yield increase in the fees and charges for 26-27 is projected to be £153,000. While this is modest, it reflects commercial reality. For example, in areas like the crematorium, we have limited price increases to 2 to 5% to protect our market share against new facilities in the county, and obviously in this part of the county. Raising prices higher would surely result in lost custom and lower overall income. Conversely, in areas like maritime pilotage and building control, we're applying higher increases, up to 20% in building control, to ensure that we're fully recovering the cost of these specialist services and are not subsidising them from the general taxpayer. Due to a publishing error, there are a few minor changes to be made to the schedule of fees and charges for 26-27 that are included in tonight's agenda pack. Within Port of Ramsgate, on page 26 of the annex, the electricity annual standing charge needs to change from £203.49 to £203.52. And a new line also needs to be added for a monthly standing charge of £16.96. Within the HRA, on page 48 of the annex, the following should have a fee of at cost plus 7.5 administration, and these are a legal application for warrant of forced entry, rubbish clearance, and the boarding of windows and doors where police have been in attendance or damaged and caused by the occupant. These charges will be updated in the schedule that we presented to OSP on the 3rd of February. I move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? Everybody wants to second that. Councillor Keane. Members, any comments on the fees and charges? Councillor Keane.
Obviously, you've already referenced the crematorium, but I just wanted to highlight that because it is important that we make sure we set rates at the right rate, and I think we've done this in these fees and charges, but also we have worked as much as we can to improve the experience at the crematorium as well. So I think it's a very good result.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, that one's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. We move on to item 12, which is the draft general fund budget for 26-27. As members will know, we're projecting a £2.9 million overspend in the current year, driven by the national crisis and temporary accommodation and homelessness, and consequently our reserves are projected to fall to £6 million. So that is the context in which this budget has been set. On the positive side, we have benefited from a £2.1 million recurring saving following the revaluation of the pension fund. We've not used this windfall for new spending. We've used it to fix the structural deficits in our base budget, and specifically in terms of 200,000 added for demand-led pressures in homelessness, 275,000 ring-fence contingency for sickness costs in cleansing, and £500,000 to cover housing benefit subsidy losses. We're also proposing a council tax increase of just under 3%, or £8.10 for a Band D property. For avoidance of doubt, that's £8.10 a year. So the budget prioritises stability. It funds the defensive capital strategy to buy our way out of high-cost temporary accommodation. It prepares us for the transition to a unitary authority in 2028 by de-risking our asset portfolio. It's a responsible budget that secures the council's status as a going concern ahead of local government reorganisation. I move the recommendations, and I will introduce an additional recommendation for Cabinet to consider. You'll see in the report it refers to an amount of £180,000, which is available for one-off expenditure. Tonight, Cabinet is making the following proposal to spend that money. £95,000 for a beach boardwalk at Margate and potentially at Ramsgate, subject to other funding being identified towards the work at Margate. We've prioritised Margate because Margate is the busier of the two beaches. We think that we can identify some other money which will allow the Ramsgate one to proceed as well. We can't confirm that at the moment, but we are intending, if we can, to do the works to both beaches. And that follows on from the boardwalk that's been successfully installed at Broadstairs, and that will obviously improve accessibility. The second one is £50,000 for lighting in St Peter's Rec to improve security and public access. That's been something which has been repeatedly raised by the ward councillors, and I'm sure that that's going to be a useful benefit. And finally, £35,000 for additional litter and fly tipping clearances on the curtilage of the A299. And I have to say that I bore officers senseless going on about this issue. I'm a regular user of the A299, and I do think we have to accept that the state of it, not just in Thanet and not just the A299, but the road all the way into London is strewn with rubbish, litter, bits of plastic, fly tipping. We can only look after the bits that fall within our district. And particularly I'm concerned about the area, the London-bound side between Cliffs End and Moncton. But it does extend beyond that as well. It's extremely expensive to clear those high-speed roads because of the safety precautions that had to be put in place to do it, including road closures by Kent County Council. That's one of the reasons why it looks as it does, because we have to make sure that the money that we spend on it is proportionate. But it really isn't good enough as it stands, and I'm pleased that we are able to make this proposal to do at least some additional work to improve the situation. So they're the recommendations, members. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alban. And then speaking under 20.1, I go back to my script. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Leader. As you've just said, I'm very pleased to see that, or hopefully the money will be spent on clearing the litter on the 299. It is the gateway to Thanet, and it is a sight sometimes, so I look forward to seeing that cleared. As the Clear Cleansing Service has faced operational pressures due to high levels of staff sickness, and agency staff have been employed to cover this, and there's a high risk that high levels of sickness will persist, how can we assume to have a £275,000 reduction in agency costs? Bins are still not being collected on time in Thanet. There have been numerous complaints, and I was told that we would be up to date on collections by the 12th of January. This is clearly not the case. Thank you.
Mr. Humble might want to talk about the situation with bin collections. I'm not sure it's quite as disastrous as is perhaps being painted. Certainly the statistics don't suggest that. Do you want to elaborate on this one, Mr. Humble?
Yes, certainly. I mean, in terms of the measures that we're putting in place to reduce the cost of agency spend, which is mainly about covering sickness. We use agency during the summer seasonally, and we use it to cover sickness absence. There's a lot of work going on to bring the level of sickness down. We've employed someone to help in terms of HR, so managing cases to reduce sickness absence. We've made changes to rotas, and certainly we've got sort of lots of measures that are going in place to reduce that that annual sickness absence rate and reduce our reliance on agency. We're doing a lot of monitoring, and certainly the situation is improving. The draft budget includes this sum, which will be spent at the discretion of the Section 151 officer next year. But I'm confident that we will continue to decrease the amount that we are spending on agency next year. There's also the sum in for summer beach cleansing, which again will help with reducing the overall cost of agency spend.
Thank you, Mr. Humber. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader. Sorry, brain's just gone. We're broadly very supportive of this. It seems a sensible, balanced budget. It focuses on areas that we need to be focusing on for our financial security, but it also, those areas, the housing and the waste management, are areas that make a massive difference in practice to the well-being of our residents. So those are areas we are delighted to see focus on. We have some suggestions of our own that we will bring through at the appropriate time, and we're grateful to Mr. Blundell for going through the budget in so much detail with us, with our group. The extra proposals that you've mentioned this evening are particularly welcome. Councillor Alban will be delighted not to have to get emails from me every 5 minutes going, why haven't we got a boardwalk on Ramsgate Main Sands? Because it looks like there might be a possibility that we actually will have, so that's brilliant. Lighting, I think it was highlighted earlier on in the evening, is always a concern, and it links back to the use of our open spaces, health and well-being, active Thanet strategy, cycling and walking, all the things we've talked about already. People are not going to get out there on foot or on their bikes if they haven't got a safe space that they feel comfortable in, and lighting is a crucial part of that. And the litter clearance, we spend a lot of our time in Ramsgate trying to stop our volunteer litter pickers saying they're going to go off and do the A299, and we have to tell them that they can't because it's not safe and it involves a road closure. So it's really good to see that something may be able to be done about this, and well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin, and I will admit that I did threaten Mr. Humber that I'd go up there and do it myself as well. But it is a dangerous place to be, and I think it's important that we do it safely, and that the people who do it are kept safe when they're doing it. The problem is that it becomes such a hugely disproportionate cost to the rest of our budget. But we do care about it, and we do want to address it as far as we can. I'm not going to pretend that this £35,000 is going to be a solution and that it will all be magically clear in future, because we could spend hundreds of thousands on those roads and keeping them clear. We have to, when you look at some of the stuff that's dumped there, you really have to question the mentality. I mean, some of it has been blown there and gets snagged on trees, but we have to, people throwing things out of cars, but also people who are clearly fly tipping along there. And it's really disappointing. But I make that journey, as I've alluded to a number of times, up into South East London on a regular basis, and I make a point of looking at what's the situation is along the rest of the A299 and the M2 and the A2 and even into Greenwich. And I can tell you that all the local authorities and all the relevant authorities are struggling. But we can only look after our patch. It is disappointing that we have to spend so much of our budget on the provision of temporary accommodation and particularly the issue of housing benefit subsidy, which is should really be no function of this council to subsidise housing benefit. But that's where we are, and if we didn't have to do that, then we would be able to do a lot more in terms of providing the things that all our residents want. But I am proud of the work that we do in terms of temporary accommodation and homelessness, and you know, we've had some external validation of that today from government representatives, I know, in private meetings. So we should be proud of what we do there, but it is a big factor in our budget setting, and it's been a big drain on our reserves. So we will have plenty more opportunities to discuss this budget going forward. I'll ask Cabinet if they wish to say anything at this stage. I'm going to go to Councillor Whitehead in case she wants to talk about temporary accommodation.
Temporary accommodation is a huge issue everywhere. There isn't a single council with housing responsibility that isn't struggling with this. But I do think that we've made significant steps forward in terms of our in-house programme and our acquisition strategy, because it's a way to not only ensure that we bring people back, and as I've said previously, we've got over 2/3 of previous historic out-of-area placements back within a year, which is brilliant. But it's also a far more cost-effective way of delivering the service, and we know the quality of housing that we provide. So I'm very pleased that we've already taken the steps that we have to acquire 170 TA properties, because I think if we hadn't taken the steps that we have, we would be in a far more challenging situation at this point. I would just like to say on a personal note how pleased I am that Cabinet has taken forward the boardwalk plans, because as some may know, I have been raising this as a particular pet project for a while, and I think it can make a huge difference to disabled people across Thanet. Access issues and equity of access is a huge thing for us to tackle, and for us to be able to do it on our 3 main beaches is a brilliant thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and obviously thank you to officers for this report and for the budget. I'm really pleased with the prudent steps Mr. Blundell's taken in terms of finding that adjustment to the pension fund that will have an ongoing saving, the HR recruitment that will start to deal with those issues in the cleansing team, and obviously the investment in TA, which we all support. Not only is it the prudent thing to do, it's the morally right thing to do as well. I just wanted to say a few words about the Zone Youth Club in Broadstairs. It's Broadstairs' only youth club. I know a lot of the attention has been on the pie factory in Ramsgate, which is an amazing institution, but the zone has been sort of quietly getting on with it for a number of years, and I think they have around 200 children a week through their doors from one of the most in need wards in the district. And I know Councillor Bright's the other Councillor Bright, the better looking one, is absolutely delighted with this proposal, and I know that this is the difference this will make, is that those 200 kids who don't necessarily attend during the winter months because of the walking across the park in the dark will actually start to come. And it's not just about giving them a space to hang out. This is about giving them a really nice meal as well, and some football coaching. So really welcome this. This is a great move. Thank you.
Councillor Al.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on Councillor Rogers' remarks about the missed bins. Just to put it into perspective, we have 70,000 households that are visited every single week, and I think you have to take it at that. And of course, sometimes there will be the odd bins missed, and that is particularly happens if there's you may be half a crew missing and a driver missing who doesn't normally do around there, and so it gets a little bit convoluted. But I have to say I'm very satisfied with our staff and whatever who carry out a really horrible task, and so I just wanted to put that into perspective, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I mean, I think we recognise that mistakes happen, but the reason that we're overspending, particularly in waste, is because we are committed to delivering our statutory responsibilities, and when we don't have the staff to go out and do it, then we do have to go out and get agency staff to make sure that we can fulfil our responsibilities. And, you know, we've all probably had a misbin in our time, if not more than one, and understand the frustration of that. But you have to put it in the context of the number of bins that we actually miss as a proportion of the whole from the council's point of view, notwithstanding how annoying it is for an individual. Mr. Humber wants to...
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just thought it might be helpful to also reference the recent figures and the performance. Our miss bins are based on misses per 100,000, and the numbers are coming down. We're currently, or certainly in the last quarter, we're around 75 misses per 100,000. So that's a pretty low figure, actually. So it's come down from over 100 to 75. So it's an improving picture.
And I think it's important we say that, but it's equally important to say that we understand how annoying it is, particularly if there's a reason for it, which is related to vehicle access or whatever, or that the crew doesn't understand where your bin is, and therefore it's repeated. It can drive people mad, and I absolutely understand that. It's probably the most important or the most regular interaction that the council has with residents, so if we do get it wrong, we understand why that reflects badly on us, but we strive to get it right as often as we possibly can. Okay. I think we're going to have plenty more opportunities to talk about this budget over the forthcoming weeks, so I don't intend to say any more about it for now, except to thank the officers for all the work that I know has gone into it. As usual, it goes on over the holiday period, either side of Christmas, because the government insists on making its announcements as close to Christmas as possible. And on the whole, the government's announcements were quite positive for us. We have one or two concerns about the funding that we've been allocated. But generally speaking, it's enabling us to set together with the 2.1 million, which we very usefully managed to claw back from the pension contributions. It's enabling us to set a balanced budget and deal with the structural issues that we've got. And hopefully we can end this level of overspend, which we certainly need to do. Members, this has been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We move on then to item 13, which is the housing revenue account budget. The HRA also faces financial pressures. We're forecasting a deficit of 939,000 for 26-27, which reflects the high cost of maintaining our stock and the significant financial burden of the Waking Watch fire safety measures at our tower blocks. To ensure the long-term viability of the service and our ability to invest in decent homes, we're proposing a rent increase of 4.8%, which is based on the approved CPI plus 1% methodology. This is necessary to recover the position. We're also investing 100 million over 4 years in new build and acquisitions, directly supporting our district's housing needs. However, we're operating within fine margins. The delivery of this budget is critically dependent on the timely cessation of Waking Watch costs as we complete those works, and we will be monitoring this on a monthly basis. I think we have some frustrations around the delays in the works to the tower blocks, which are necessitating this ongoing Waking Watch presence, which are not being caused locally as far as we're concerned. They really go back to the national delays through the building safety regulator as far as I understand it. But obviously we have to keep our residents safe in the meantime. I move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Duckworth. Would anyone like to speak about the housing revenue budget? Okay.
Councillor Alban says no.
Thank you.
Computer says no.
Whilst working there from the back, you're all right.
That might be a first, by the way. Okay, members, that's been moved and seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 15 had some concerns about the publication of it earlier, but Charles has shown me that it has been published on the website. Slightly confusing in that it's not linked to the bottom of the report, but it is shown in the supplementary agenda, so I'm satisfied that we can carry on and consider it. If you bear with me a second. So, Cabinet's been asked to approve the updated data protection policy. This updates the policy that was previously approved in 2018, around the same time as the introduction of the General Data Protection Regulations. The amendments reflect current best practice and legal interpretation. There are some changes to depersonalised roles, removing reference to officers' names. The policy has been made gender neutral, and there has been some tidying up of language and formatting so that the policy aligns with other council policies. So I move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Alban. Members, any comments on this one? Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. That concludes tonight's meeting. I'll make the time 13 minutes past 8. Thank you very much for your attendance and participation, and enjoy the rest of your evening.